My hands are still shaking. NGL, never thought I'd be writing this. I'm Ethan, 45, been with Brenda for 17 years, building our life, our business. But this morning, her frantic call felt like a punch to the gut. And now, everything's gone. This is a throwaway account for a reason. The call came just before lunch. Brenda's voice was high-pitched, almost a shriek. Ethan, get home now! My gut twisted. My first thought was the girls, Sarah and Olivia. Was one of them hurt? In trouble? NGL, I dropped everything, told Marcy, our business partner, I had an emergency and bolted from the office. The drive, usually a quick 10 minutes, felt like an eternity. My hands were shaking on the wheel, my mind racing through every worst-case scenario. I pulled into the driveway, and that's when the first red flag, a giant scarlet banner, smacked me in the face. A moving truck. Not just any moving truck, but our furniture, our memories, being loaded into it. My chest tightened. Then I saw her. Brenda, leaning against a brand new Mercedes, not ours, definitely not ours, looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, like she was looking at a stranger, or worse, something she'd left on the bottom of her shoe. I jumped out of the truck, my heart pounding. Brenda, what the hell is going on? Where are the girls? She didn't even flinch, just straightened up, a folder in her hand. Ethan, it's over. I'm leaving you. She shoved the folder at me. Divorce papers. Typed, notarized, signed, 17 years. Gone, just like that. And the girls? I asked again, my voice raspy. They're already gone. I took them this morning. They're fine, don't worry. Her words were flat, devoid of emotion. I'm moving in with the man I love. My world tilted. The man she loves? Who? How? My mind was a whirlwind of questions, but I couldn't process any of them. I saw one of the movers struggling with a heavy box. On instinct, I pulled out my wallet, peeled off a $100 bill. Hey man, quick question. Where's all this going? I asked, pushing the money into his hand. He looked surprised, then discreetly gave me an address. I pulled out my phone, typed it in. My blood ran cold. The address, it was Chad's. My brother Chad. It was like a lightning bolt, a sickening realization that hit me so hard I actually stumbled backward. Chad, my brother, the man I'd built this electrical business with, brick by brick, from nothing. The guy I trusted implicitly, the guy who was practically family. Brenda and Chad, all those late nights he supposedly spent at the office, the business trips, the way Brenda would sometimes defend him a little too vehemently. TBH, I had dismissed every single one of those little red flags as paranoia, as the stresses of running a business and raising 2 kids. IDK, how I could have been so blind, so stupid. Rage, pure, unadulterated rage, filled me. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a desecration of everything I thought I had. I didn't even remember getting back into my truck. The drive to the office was a blur. I parked, practically ripped the door open, and stormed inside. Sharon, our receptionist, looked up, startled. Ethan, what's wrong? I ignored her. My eyes were fixed on Chad's office door. Locked. Chad in? I gritted out. Sharon nodded, looking uncomfortable. He's on a personal call. Says he can't be disturbed. Personal call. The words echoed in my head, mocking me. Stand right here, Sharon, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I want you to be a witness. Before she could react, I put my shoulder into the door. The cheap lock splintered, and the door flew open with a bang. Chad, sitting at his desk, phone to his ear, practically jumped out of his skin. He stammered something into the phone, then slammed it down, his face a mixture of fear and surprise. Ethan, what the hell? I walked right up to his desk, leaning over it, my knuckles white as I gripped the edge. You have exactly until the divorce is finalized to buy me out of this company. Chad, every single share. He tried to play it cool, to gaslight me. Ethan, what are you talking about? Brenda's just staying at my place for a bit. She needs some space. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Brenda just told me she's moving in with the man she loves. Does that sound like needing space to you, brother? Chad's face drained of all color. Sharon, standing just outside the shattered doorway, gasped. Her eyes flicked from me to Chad, and the realization dawned on her, clear as day. All those late afternoons you had to work here, all those meetings Brenda had out of town, you covered for each other, didn't you? My voice was barely a whisper, but it vibrated with fury. NGL, I knew something was off, but I never in a million years thought it would be you, my own brother. You're lucky I don't beat you to a pulp right here. I paused, then a new chilling thought struck me. You know what? I'm gonna make sure Brenda gets tested, for everything. And if she's got anything, buddy, you're next. Chad went completely white. I pulled out my phone, found Marcy's number, and put her on speaker. She answered, sounding irritated. Ethan, what happened? Are you okay? Marcy, I'm calling to resign, effective immediately. I heard her sputter. What? What are you talking about? I'm out. And just so you know why, I looked Chad dead in the eyes. Chad's secret lover, the woman he's been sleeping with, is Brenda. My wife. She just served me divorce papers and moved in with him this morning. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening for a beat. Then Marcy's voice exploded. What? Chad, is this true? What in God's name? I didn't wait for Chad to respond. His face was a mask of furious, trapped terror. I hung up. Sharon Carroll, I called out to the other administrative assistant who had appeared, drawn by the commotion. Come to my office. We're going to spend the rest of the day documenting every single thing I've done for this company, every project, every client contact, every email. And you two are going to witness it all, every single detail. This wasn't just about leaving. This was about preparing for a war. After blowing up Chad's office, the rest of Friday was a blur of paperwork. Sharon and Carol were amazing, honestly. They were quiet, efficient, and their faces just said it all. Shock, pity, anger on my behalf. I had them sign off on every key I returned, every company credit card, every piece of company property that was in my possession. NGL, it felt like I was meticulously dismantling my own life, but I was doing it with witnesses. By the time I walked out of that office for what might be the last time, their eyes were red. Carol actually gave me a hug. We're so sorry, Ethan, she whispered. That was when it really hit me. The public humiliation, the sheer ugliness of it all. I didn't go home. I couldn't. My gut instinct was to burn it all down. First stop, the best real estate agent in town, Miss Higgins. Her office was still open, thank God. I walked in, probably looking like a maniac, and just laid it all out. I need to list my house, now, like yesterday. I gave her Brenda's new temporary address, Chad's house, his address, the thought still made me want to puke, and Brenda's phone number. Here's the deal, Ms. Higgins. You call Brenda, she gets to decide the list price. She thinks she's in charge of everything? Fine. Let her price it, but get it on the market by Monday morning. It was a small, petty victory, but it was something. Back in my truck, I finally read the divorce papers. My hands were shaking again, but this time from a different kind of anger. Emotional and mental cruelty. That was Brenda's big claim, and then the kicker, primary custody of Sarah and Olivia, with supervised visitation for me. Supervised, my own daughters. It hit me then, her angle. We'd always had different parenting styles. I was the stricter one, the one who pushed them a bit, taught them practical skills, wanted them to be resilient. Brenda was always the softer one, the one who babied them, protected them from every scraped knee. She was going to try and spin my efforts to raise independent kids as cruelty. The gaslighting was real, even on paper. She was painting me as some kind of monster to take away my kids. IDK, maybe she always saw me that way. That night was a blur. I bought a cheap bottle of whiskey, drove to a secluded spot overlooking the lake, and just drank. Every swallow burned, but it dulled the raw edges of the betrayal, if only for a few hours. I woke up Saturday morning in my truck, head pounding, mouth tasting like an old shoe, hungover as hell. I dragged myself back to the house, which felt alien now, filled with absence. Everything I looked at, from the coffee maker to the couch, felt tainted. I tried to do some chores, tried to keep busy, tried to pretend like life wasn't utterly obliterated. It didn't work. Around noon, I finally turned my phone back on. It immediately blew up. Missed calls, texts, voicemails, a literal flood. Most were from Marcy, a couple from Sharon and Carol, even a few from some mutual friends asking if I was okay, if the rumors were true. I scrolled past the concerned friends and went straight to Marcy's messages. She was furious, demanding answers, threatening Chad. Good, I needed allies. Then Ms. Higgins called. Ethan, Brenda just called me back. She was not happy. NGL, a small dark part of me, felt a flicker of satisfaction. She was furious you listed the house with all the furniture. Said she needed it for her new place. Like she didn't just move into my brother's house, which is fully furnished, I'm sure. Ms. Higgins chuckled, a dry, knowing sound. But she agreed. She said she'd add $20,000 to the asking price if the furniture stayed. I nearly dropped the phone. 20 grand for our old furniture? She was out of her mind. And just so you know, Higgins continued, I told her, Brenda, what did you expect? You left him for his brother? You're lucky he's not burning the house down. I actually smiled, a genuine smile. Good for Miss Higgins. Oh, and one more thing, Ms. Higgins added. She seemed genuinely surprised that you demanded a buyout from the company. Like she had no idea that was even on the table. Either Chad didn't tell her or she just truly didn't think about the financial consequences of blowing up our lives. Typical Brenda, always thinking someone else would handle the details. That call solidified something in me. I needed to get away from them, both of them, and I needed cash, fast. Every single asset I owned that wasn't tied up in the company or the house, I was going to liquidate. My classic Mustang, my fishing boat, the small vacation property up north. All of it, listed, today. I knew I couldn't navigate this alone. My next call was to Mr. Davidson, the best divorce attorney in town. His assistant, bless her heart, squeezed me in for an emergency consultation first thing Monday morning. Mr. Davidson said to tell you to start gathering everything, she said. Financial records, tax returns, bank statements, asset lists, emails, texts, anything you have. My logical investigator brain, numb from the shock and betrayal, finally kicked in. This was a war, and I needed to arm myself. I spent the rest of Saturday night and early Sunday morning setting up new separate bank accounts. I moved every single dollar of my personal savings, every investment out of the joint accounts and into my new ones. Then, with a grim satisfaction, I called every credit card company for cards Brenda and I shared and canceled them all. Let her deal with that. I was building my fortress. Monday morning with Mr. Davison was enlightening and depressing. We went through Brenda's divorce petition. Her primary demand was still primary custody of Sarah and Olivia, with my visitation supervised. My attorney, Mr. Davidson, just shook his head. This is aggressive, Ethan, but standard for a wife trying to paint the husband as unstable. Then we talked about the prenup. Brenda and I had signed one way back when, mostly because our families thought it was smart, given the business. Davidson looked it over. Honestly, after 17 years of marriage, this prenup is pretty flimsy in terms of spousal support, but it does a good job of keeping your premarital assets separate. The house, the business shares, they're all postmarital property, so that's going to be split. But anything you had before marriage is pretty safe. Good to know, I guess. Small mercies. Brenda also demanded the girls stay in private school. I agreed, that was always the plan. But Davidson raised an eyebrow. Then, she's moved out, she's with your brother, and she's asking for a full-on lifestyle post-divorce. Where does she think the money for private school is coming from? Especially if you buy Chad out of the company, which she clearly wasn't expecting. That question was like a switch flipping in my head. Davidson then suggested something crucial. Ethan, we need to investigate Brenda's finances, hard, especially any unusual spending or withdrawals in the last year or so. And frankly, we need to look into Chad's finances too, if he's involved. That was my cue. I left Davidson's office and drove straight to our bank. Armed with a lawyer's letter, I pulled every joint bank statement and credit card statement for the past 2 years. Sitting in the bank lobby, scrolling through printouts, my stomach dropped. There were withdrawals, large, cash withdrawals, not regular ones, not like for household expenses. These were spaced out, irregular, but substantial. And then the credit card statements. Luxury boutique purchases. Brenda never made. Expensive resort stays I never knew about. Car rentals. The receipts were all there. My mind went back to Chad, always a schemer, always a womanizer, even when he was supposedly settling down. He'd pulled shady business deals before, mostly small-time stuff, but enough to make me question his ethics. Now, this. Mr. Davidson, I called him back immediately. I think we need a private investigator. Someone to dig into all of this. He didn't hesitate. I figured you might say that. I know just the man. Mr. Henderson. He's discreet and he's damn good. I'll make the call. A few hours later, I was sitting across from Mr. Henderson in his unassuming office. He looked like a librarian, not a PI, which somehow made me trust him more. I laid it all out. The sudden divorce. Brenda moving in with Chad, the odd withdrawals, the suspicious credit card activity. My gut feeling that something much darker was going on. I need you to look into Brenda's spending habits, Chad's financial situation, and what they've been up to for the last year. Maybe even two, I told him. I'm talking everything. Hidden assets, bank accounts, travel, anything. Henderson listened intently, nodding occasionally, taking detailed notes. He promised to start immediately. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. Brenda had left her Mercedes in our driveway. Probably too busy, moving in with the man she loves. Her briefcase was on the passenger seat. I slid it out, took it into the garage, and opened it. My hands were shaking, but this wasn't about anger anymore. This was about fear, about knowing. Inside, among her usual work papers, I found something that made my blood run cold. Insurance policies, 3 of them. For Brenda, for Sarah, for Olivia, but none for me. Not a single policy with my name on it. What the hell? Why would she suddenly take out policies only for herself and the girls? It felt ominous. I kept searching. I knew Brenda had a small, almost secret office space in the house where she kept her personal papers. She had this old mahogany desk with a hidden drawer that only opened if you pressed a certain spot. I found it. Inside, nestled amongst old photos and trinkets, were jewelry receipts, recent ones, big purchases. And then I remembered. The diamond necklace. The one I'd given her for our 10th anniversary, a really valuable piece. She hadn't been wearing it lately. I just thought she'd stop because she preferred something simpler. But now, I went to her jewelry box. Empty. The necklace wasn't there. It wasn't anywhere. That pit in my stomach grew, a cold, hard knot. This wasn't just about an affair and a nasty divorce. This felt like something calculated. Something more. And I was suddenly very, very afraid of what Mr. Henderson would find. The jewelry receipts were a gold mine of pain. Not only was the diamond necklace gone, clearly sold, but there was a recent receipt for an even more expensive custom-made ring. A man's ring. My blood went cold. I picked up the phone, adrenaline surging, and called the jeweler. "Hi, this is Brenda," I said, trying to mimic her light, airy tone. "NGL," my voice was shaking, but I pushed through it. "I was calling about that custom ring I bought a few months ago. The men's one. I just wanted to ask about a possible resizing, or perhaps a cleaning. I'm thinking of giving it to someone special." The jeweler, completely oblivious, rattled off details about the order. "Oh yes, Miss Brenda, the custom sapphire and diamond ring for Mr. Chad. A beautiful piece. It was quite a significant charge on your joint account, if I recall correctly." My world spun. A custom ring for Chad, paid for with our money, for the man she loved. But that wasn't even the worst part. Still digging through Brenda's secret papers, I found it. A life insurance policy. For me. With Brenda as the sole beneficiary. A cool $1 million. My hands actually started to tremble. I checked the date. 6 months ago. Exactly 6 months. Just after she started making those strange, large withdrawals from our joint accounts. It felt like a punch to the gut. Then a chilling wave of dread washed over me. This wasn't just infidelity, this was premeditated. Then, buried deep, I found something else. Records of a substantial sum of money, hundreds of thousands, invested in Chad's name. And then, the ultimate betrayal. A deposit. A huge deposit from my company's operating account into a personal account. An account I didn't recognize. An account in Chad's name. My own brother siphoning money from our family business? The company my mother started? The company I poured my life into? He hadn't just been sleeping with my wife, he'd been stealing from me, from us for years. The afternoons and business trips weren't just for trysts, they were for embezzling. Just then, Mr. Henderson's email popped up, his initial report. It was concise, professional, and devastating. He confirmed Brenda and Chad's relationship, detailing their frequent clandestine meetings, their shared vacations disguised as girls' trips for Brenda and client meetings for Chad. He tracked Brenda's lavish spending, the boutique purchases I'd seen on the credit card statements, the resort stays, and then he dropped the bomb, a series of investments Brenda had made in the last 6 months, exactly when my life insurance policy was taken out, and when Chad received that large sum. It all clicked into place, a horrifying mosaic of deceit. Brenda wasn't just having an affair, she was systematically building a new life with Chad, using my money, my business, my very existence as her personal piggy bank. The cash withdrawals, the expensive gifts for Chad, the new car, the investments in his name, the missing diamond necklace, the life insurance policy on me. It was all part of a larger, colder, more calculated scheme. They weren't just running off together, they were running off with everything. I immediately called Mr. Davidson. You need to see this now. I rushed back to his office, clutching the policy and the jewelry receipts like they were burning my hands. His face, usually so calm, hardened as he read through them. Ethan, he said, looking up, his voice grave. This is very serious. The life insurance policy, the financial transfers, the gifts, this moves beyond simple divorce. This is potentially fraud, perhaps even conspiracy. Conspiracy to do what? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to say it out loud. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he leaned forward. We need to bring Marcy into this, immediately. The company fraud, Chad siphoning funds, she's the majority shareholder. She needs to know. My heart sank. My mother, Marcy, she had poured her heart and soul into that company. Chad was her son, too. This would destroy her. The thought of inflicting that pain on her on top of everything else made me hesitate. But Davidson was right. She had to know. I went home, my head reeling, and pulled out my laptop. I started compiling a ledger. Every suspicious transaction, every withdrawal, every investment, every gift, every policy, dates, amounts, recipients. It was going to be my weapon. While I did that, I also moved even more aggressively to secure my personal investments. I diversified everything, pulled funds from anything connected to the company, and transferred it all into new, untouchable accounts. I was going to fight them. I was going to make sure they got nothing. Breaking the news to Marcy was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I drove to her house, my stomach in knots. She greeted me with a hug, her eyes already filled with concern from my earlier resignation call. I sat her down, took a deep breath, and started gently. Mom, Brenda, she's left me. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh, Ethan, no, for what reason? What happened? Then I delivered the second blow. She left me for Chad. Marcy went silent, her face crumpled, then hardened. First heartbreak for me, her son, then pure, unadulterated fury at Chad, her other son. Chad? My Chad? How could he? How could they? Tears welled in her eyes, but they were tears of rage now. I'm going to kill him. Both of them. This was my opening. Mom, there's more. Her eyes still blazing, fixed on me. I think they've been stealing from the company, from you, from all of us. Disbelief flickered across her face. No, Ethan. Chad would never. He's my son. I wish that were true, Mom, but I have proof. I pulled out the meticulously compiled ledger. Every transaction, every date, every amount highlighted. I showed her the irregular deposits from the company into an unknown account, the missing diamond necklace, and then, with a heavy heart, I laid out the $1 million life insurance policy on me, taken out just 6 months prior. I explained about the custom ring Brenda bought for Chad using our joint funds. Marcy went from disbelief to absolute fury. Her hands trembled as she scanned the documents. Unauthorized transfers? From my company into his account and a policy? On you? Her voice was barely a whisper, laced with a venom I'd rarely heard. Get me the auditors. Now. A full forensic audit. Everything, every dime. I want to know exactly how much they stole. It was a whirlwind after that. I coordinated with our company's longtime financial team, and Marcy brought in an independent forensic auditing firm. They wasted no time. Within days, the preliminary findings started rolling in, and they were devastating. Significant discrepancies, unauthorized transfers, payments to shell companies with names that traced back to Chad. It was worse than I even imagined. Then Mr. Henderson, my PI, came through with even more evidence. He sent me photos. Photos of Chad out on the town with Brenda, wearing a ring, a sapphire and diamond ring that matched the jeweler's description exactly. Henderson also detailed Chad's pattern of setting up shell companies, hidden bank accounts, and fictitious invoices to siphon money from the company over the past 2 years. The scale of the betrayal was staggering. Mr. Davidson and I met again, this time with a grim understanding of the path ahead. Ethan, he said, laying out the legal options. Chad and Brenda aren't just facing a divorce settlement anymore. This is grand theft, embezzlement, conspiracy to defraud. With the life insurance policy, frankly, we could even argue attempted murder. The words hung in the air, heavy and dark. We need to involve the police. I didn't argue. The local police department was contacted. We provided them with the initial findings from the audit and Henderson's report. They took it all seriously, very seriously. Marcy, armed with all this irrefutable evidence, confronted Chad. I wasn't there, but I can imagine. He denied it at the first, of course. Tried to gaslight her, just like he tried to gaslight me. Mom, you know Ethan's just bitter. He's making things up. Brenda and I are just finding happiness. But Marcy wasn't having it. Not with the ledger, the audit reports, and the PI photos staring her in the face. She ripped into him, told him he was dead to her, that she was pressing charges, and that he would never see a dime from the company again. It was over for him. As I watched the pieces fall into place, watched their carefully constructed house of cards collapse, I didn't feel triumph, just a cold, hard resolve. The emotional wreckage was immense, but the truth was finally coming out. And for anyone else out there who's been through something similar, or just wondering how deep the rabbit hole can go when betrayal hits like this, stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold. The full forensic audit came back, confirming everything I suspected and worse. Chad had been systematically defrauding the company for years, siphoning off hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And Brenda? She wasn't just a passive recipient of stolen funds. The audit showed she was an active participant, helping to hide transfers, creating false invoices, and manipulating records. She was a willing accomplice in what amounted to financial grand theft. Armed with this damning evidence, the police officially launched a formal criminal investigation into both Chad and Brenda for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. It was no longer just a messy divorce, it was a criminal enterprise. Mr. Davidson moved quickly. He amended the divorce papers, adding fraud, embezzlement, and adultery as new undeniable grounds for divorce. The initial demand for Brenda to have primary custody? Gone. We were now demanding full custody of Sarah and Olivia, citing Brenda's blatant moral turpitude, her financial crimes, and her utter disregard for the family's stability. It wasn't about anger anymore. It was about protecting my daughters from the fallout of their mother's criminal actions. Brenda and Chad, clearly panicking as their world crumbled, started harassing Marcy, calling her nonstop, threatening her, demanding she drop the charges. Marcy, tough as she is, was shaken. I immediately secured a restraining order against both of them. They weren't allowed anywhere near her. Then came the financial hammer. The police, working with our legal team, froze all of Brenda's and Chad's known assets. Bank accounts, properties, the new Mercedes, everything. They were cut off completely. It was in this chaos that my daughters reached out. Sarah, then Olivia, called me, their voices tight with distress. Dad, Mom is a mess. She says you're making things up, that you're ruining her life. You have to drop the charges. She didn't do anything wrong. It was classic gaslighting straight from Brenda's playbook. They were trying to manipulate me, just like Brenda always had. My heart ached, but I couldn't back down. This was for their future too. I spoke calmly, deliberately. Girls, I know this is hard to hear, but your mom and Chad, they've done some very serious things. It's not just about me, it's about the company, Grandma Marcy's company. They've been stealing from us for years. I walked them through the evidence, the company records, the transfers, the missing diamond necklace, the expensive ring Brenda bought Chad, and then the clincher, the life insurance policy on me. Your mom took out $1 million life insurance policy on me just 6 months ago, with her as the sole beneficiary. Think about that. Their faces, visible over video call, were a mixture of shock and dawning horror. They went silent. The certainty in their voices wavered. But she said you were just being mean, Sarah whispered. Olivia just stared wide-eyed. She said you were trying to punish her. I'm not punishing anyone, girls. I'm protecting what's left of our family and what Grandma Marcy built. I knew they needed to hear it from Brenda herself to see her reactions. I'm setting up a meeting. You can talk to your mom. You can ask her directly about all of this, but it will be monitored out. While the legal battles raged, I also focused on the company. Our employees were getting wind of things, whispers spreading like wildfire. Marcy and I worked with a PR firm to draft a public statement. It was carefully worded, acknowledging serious financial irregularities and leadership changes without going into excessive detail, but making it clear that the company was taking decisive action and was cooperating fully with authorities. It was about protecting the hundreds of loyal employees who depended on us. Mr. Davidson was a rock. He walked me through every potential court battle, every legal maneuver Brenda and Chad might attempt. He warned me about the media scrutiny that was sure to follow. This isn't going to be pretty, Ethan, but we have the truth on our side. My support network solidified. Sharon and Carol, the executive assistants, remained fiercely loyal. They helped me compile even more documentation, offering witness statements and confirming details about Chad's absences and Brenda's strange visits to the office. They were disgusted by what they learned. Every legal document was checked and rechecked, watertight, every piece of evidence meticulously cataloged. I felt a grim determination settling over me. The moral and legal consequences for Chad and Brenda were about to unfold. There was no going back now. The day I delivered the amended divorce papers and the restraining orders to Brenda and Chad was surreal. I drove to Chad's house, not alone. 2 process servers were with me, silent witnesses. Brenda and Chad were waiting, looking furious, but there was an underlying tremor of fear in their eyes. They knew what was coming. As the process servers handed them the documents, their faces contorted. "This is ridiculous, Ethan. We're going to countersue you for harassment." Brenda shrieked, her voice high and unstable. Chad just glared, his jaw clenched. But he was pale. They could threaten all they wanted, but I saw it. The fear that came with realizing I wasn't playing nice anymore. I had the evidence, and they knew it. Marcy moved swiftly. She called an emergency board meeting, every director present. She laid out the forensic audit results, the police reports, Henderson's findings. The air in the room was thick with disbelief, then outrage. And Chad, who was still technically on the board until that moment, sat there, silent, his face ashen. There was no defense, no explanation. Marcy, with a strength I'd never seen before, looked at her son and simply stated, "Chad, you are stripped of your presidency, effective immediately. All company affiliations are terminated. You are out." It was brutal, absolute. The local news got hold of it almost immediately. A prominent family business, a respected name in the community, embroiled in scandal, embezzlement, adultery, family betrayal. Our stock took a hit, a temporary dip, but it was a gut punch to see our reputation dragged through the mud. Then came the meeting with Sarah and Olivia and Brenda. It was set up in a neutral, supervised location. My girls, bless their hearts, came in looking anxious but determined. They looked at Brenda, their mother, with a mixture of confusion and anger. Brenda, ever the actress, started her usual routine. Girls, your father is being cruel. He's making up stories. He's trying to punish me. But Sarah, my sharp eldest, cut her off. Mom, Dad showed us the bank statements, the money for Chad's ring, the insurance policy. Why did you take out $1 million policy on Dad just 6 months ago? Brenda stammered, tried to deflect, tried to gaslight them with vague answers about financial planning and Ethan's temper. But they weren't buying it. I saw the shift in their eyes. They remembered my honesty, my straightforward answers, contrasted with Brenda's frantic evasions. Olivia, quieter but fiercely observant, just shook her head. Dad wouldn't lie about this, Mom, not about Grandma Marcy's company. The truth, delivered by their own father, had stuck. Mr. Davidson, seizing the momentum, immediately went to court for emergency temporary full custody. He laid out Brenda's criminal involvement, her financial instability, the restraining order, and the obvious emotional distress she was causing the girls. The judge, presented with the overwhelming evidence, didn't hesitate. Full custody was granted to me. Sarah and Olivia moved back into our house, my house now. They were quiet, subdued, confused, yes, but I could feel a palpable sense of relief from them. Relief to be away from the chaos, away from Brenda's frantic attempts to spin her narrative. I immediately arranged for them to start counseling with a therapist who specialized in family trauma. They needed a safe space to process the betrayal of their mother and their uncle. Just days later, the news broke that Chad and Brenda had been arrested. The police had enough evidence from the forensic audit and Henderson's meticulous PI reports to make their move. They were taken in, booked, and charged. The community was absolutely rocked. My phone didn't stop ringing. Clients, friends, employees, all expressing shock and support. It was a tough time for the company, for Marcy, and for me. We worked tirelessly day and night to reassure clients, to maintain stability. Marcy was an absolute lioness, leading with unwavering resolve. Sharon and Carol were instrumental, handling logistics and comforting confused staff. We were a team, fighting for the legacy that Chad and Brenda had tried to destroy. The consequences were unfolding, stark and undeniable, for everyone to see. The divorce proceedings were a bitter, drawn-out affair, a public spectacle of raw emotion and legal maneuvering. Brenda's attorney tried every trick in the book, pushing her narrative of emotional and mental cruelty, trying to paint me as the villain. But it was all smoke and mirrors. My evidence was unassailable. Mr. Davidson laid it all out. The PI reports detailing Brenda's and Chad's affair, the forensic audit confirming the embezzlement, the financial documents showing the siphoned funds, the custom ring bought for Chad with our money, and the chilling $1 million life insurance policy Brenda had taken out on me. Brenda's flimsy claims crumbled under the sheer weight of her adultery and fraud. There was no denying it. The court saw through her gaslighting. The judge, with a stern expression, granted me full custody of Sarah and Olivia. Brenda was given limited supervised visitation, a stark testament to her moral turpitude and criminal behavior. The judge made it clear her actions had directly jeopardized her children's well-being and stability. Financially, Brenda was gutted. Due to her active role in the fraud, most of her assets were forfeited or seized. She walked away with barely a fraction of what she had initially demanded, a pittance compared to what she thought she was entitled to. Her grand plan of a lavish life with Chad, built on lies and stolen money, had utterly backfired. The criminal trial that followed was a media circus. Every dirty detail of our family's betrayal, every sordid aspect of their affair and financial crimes was aired publicly. It was humiliating, painful, and utterly draining. I testified, my voice steady despite the churning in my gut, recounting the discovery of the affair, the financial fraud, the insurance policy. I detailed the damage to our company, to Marcy, to our employees. I didn't hold back. NGL, it felt like I was tearing open old wounds, but it was necessary. Chad and Brenda both testified, attempting to maintain their lies. But the evidence against them was overwhelming. The jury didn't buy it. They were found guilty on multiple counts: embezzlement, money laundering, conspiracy to defraud. The judge delivered a harsh sentence, substantial prison time for both of them. It wasn't the satisfaction I thought it would be, just a hollow, weary sense of closure. The company's reputation took a significant hit, as expected. But Marcy and I, along with our loyal team, worked tirelessly to rebuild trust. We held town halls, met with clients personally, and emphasized our renewed commitment to integrity and transparency. It was a long, uphill battle, but slowly, surely, we started to mend the cracks. My relationship with Sarah and Olivia, though still fragile, began to slowly mend. They saw my strength, my honesty through it all. They saw me fight for them, protect them, even when it meant exposing their mother's darkest secrets. They saw the contrast between my actions and Brenda's. It wasn't easy. There were tears and difficult conversations. But we were a family, and we were healing. Marcy, in a public statement that broke my heart, formally disowned Chad. She expressed her profound regret and disappointment, severing all ties. It was a painful end to a relationship that had spanned her entire life, but she did it for the company and for her own integrity. Miraculously, some of the stolen assets were recovered. The diamond necklace, sold by Brenda, was eventually traced and returned to me. Other funds Chad had hidden in shell companies were seized and returned to the company. It wasn't everything, but it was something. I stood there at the end of it all, watching the pieces of my shattered life slowly reassemble. I had destroyed my family in a way, not through my own actions, but by exposing the rot within it. The emotional toll was immense, a scar that would never fully heal. But I knew deep down it was necessary. Justice had been served. Chad and Brenda got what they deserved. The judge didn't pull any punches, sentencing them both to substantial prison time. Justice, cold and hard, was served. It wasn't a triumphant feeling, more like a heavy weight finally lifted. They were gone, removed from our lives, paying the price for their greed and betrayal. The company, under Marcy's unwavering leadership and my initial support, slowly but surely began to recover. We worked tirelessly to rebuild trust, to show our clients and employees that our foundation of integrity remained. It was a long, arduous process, but Marcy was a force of nature. She cleaned house, implemented stringent new ethical guidelines, and brought in fresh talent, transforming the business into something even stronger, more transparent than before. My focus shifted entirely to Sarah and Olivia. They had been through so much, seen the worst of humanity, and carried the weight of their mother's actions. My priority was creating a stable, loving, and frankly boring home for them. We went to counseling regularly, talked openly, cried sometimes, but mostly we just were. Slowly, they started to thrive again. Sarah found her footing in debate club. Olivia excelled in soccer. They started laughing more, trusting more. It was a long road, but seeing them heal was my greatest reward. As the company stabilized, I realized something profound. I had fought for justice, for Marcy, and for my daughters. But the business, in its original form, no longer felt like my path. I sat down with Marcy, and we had an honest conversation. I sold my shares back to her for a fair price, ensuring she had full control and could continue building her legacy. It was time for me to forge my own new path. I started a new venture, something smaller, more personal, leveraging my experience but prioritizing work-life balance and values I now held even dearer. It was exhilarating, scary, but filled with a sense of purpose that had been missing for years. Marcy, meanwhile, continued to steer the original company, now a beacon of ethical business in the community. With Chad and Brenda gone and my new life taking shape, I finally found a sense of peace and closure. The raw wounds of betrayal had scarred over, leaving behind lessons learned. I learned to trust my instincts, to set healthy boundaries, not just with acquaintances, but with family too. The entire saga became a cautionary tale in our community, whispered behind hands, about the destructive power of greed and deceit. Reflecting on the painful journey, I realized the immense strength I had gained. I had faced the darkest parts of human nature, survived and emerged stronger, more resilient. And in that strength, in that newfound peace, I unexpectedly found a new relationship. Someone kind, honest, and who understood my past without judgment. It was a quiet, steady love, built on mutual respect and genuine connection. The girls, in a difficult but necessary step for their own healing, eventually decided to visit Brenda in prison. I didn't go. That was their journey. It was a hard day for them, but they came back with a sense of clarity, a final piece of their emotional puzzle settling into place. I embraced my new life fully. I had faced the moral consequences of my family's actions head on. I had endured the betrayal, fought the battle, and now I was building something real, something honest, for myself and my daughters. NGL, even with Chad and Brenda locked up, the fallout isn't over. That kind of betrayal rips through everything, leaving permanent scars. Our family, it's fundamentally broken. Marcy, my mom, had to watch her son, her own flesh and blood, go to prison for stealing from her and trying to ruin my life. That kind of pain, that doesn't just go away. The company survived, TBH, stronger now because we rebuilt it on integrity. But everyone knows the story. It's a permanent stain, a cautionary tale whispered in the community about greed and family. Sarah and Olivia, my girls, they're thriving now, but the trauma of seeing their mother and uncle exposed like that sticks. They navigate the world differently, more cautiously, more aware of deceit. Their visits to Brenda in prison are stark reminders of choices made and lives ruined. For me, I built a new life, found love, but IDK if I'll ever fully trust again, not without that constant, almost obsessive verification. The peace I have is hard-won, built on the ashes of everything I once believed. The consequences aren't just a prison sentence. They're the forever altered landscape of our lives.